Good morning and hello from Tokyo. I wanted to share some of the news coming out of Ukraine area, and I wanted to let you know any updates, what's happening in the Ukraine. Hello again, I'm Ron here in Tokyo, sharing the news from different perspectives. Today, Tao the tank killer, so-called Saint Javelin stickers employ a mime that is popular in Ukraine these days. This is the Javelin missile that's anti-tank that's destroying a lot of Russian tanks. And I just wanted to share this is becoming popular in the Ukraine. Let's go to other news. Canada is dropping the pre-entry test, and this might be indicative of other countries around the world who are going to start dropping their mask mandates. There's been some preliminary dropping in Europe during the mask mandates, but Canada and the US are trying to drop their mask mandates. Turning back to Kiev, or Lviv, people are taken in fleeing war from the Ukraine east and south. And as you can see here, kids are sleeping on the mattresses. And already it says here about 2 million people have been internally displaced inside the Ukraine. Outside of the Ukraine, about 3.5 million people, mostly have fled directly to Poland. So Poland is a little bit overwhelmed. So some places are turning schools into homes for people. And this happened actually in Japan, where I'm at now. After the earthquake, a lot of people were displaced in the Fukushima, and now they were put into schools. So this is one story. Yula Durin and her daughter, Albina, she's reading a story together in a classroom filled with bunk beds and mattresses. They left their home in Luhansk, a district of Ukraine hard hit by the war. Albina's 8th birthday was on Friday. So this is kind of what the situation looks like, where regular school chairs and desks are being put aside to make room for families that are moving into schools. So desks in the school of Lviv are stacked in the halls, so bunk beds and mattresses can be put into classrooms. According to the United Nations, there are about 2 million internally displaced people in the Ukraine. And this is an amazing story. Children in Lviv want to be useful. So when they're doing cleaning or looking for ways to fix the schools, kids are showing up. Students age 4 to 17 who live in this neighborhood don't attend classes in person, both because of the displaced people living there and capacity in the shelters used by the school. So there's not enough room as air raid sirens ring through the day. So students some are going to school and some are showing up to do something. They want to be part of, how can we help? What can we do? And this is just amazing. Tatiana Petrashin is an English teacher at the school of Lviv. She says her students are eager to help recently displaced children who have arrived and are living in their classrooms. This is quite amazing. And the story goes on, children want to be useful, she said. They don't want to cry or think, oh, it's terrible. They believe in a good place in society, in our society. And this is also another common story that's happening in the Ukraine. Mother and son fled, father stayed behind. So as breakfast is served normally, the lunchroom, Yulia Zahardendenko sits with her 9-year-old son, Adriti. She picks slowly at the red plate and a piece of bread. Her mind is far from this place. It is the 4th day living in a classroom. When the fighter jets started to fly over us and started to bombard the town and the closest region, we decided to leave, Zahardenko said through a translator. So this is some of the stories coming out of the Ukraine. Let's investigate a few more. This is also coming out of Canadian and American news. Colin Kaepernick is trying to get back in the NFL. He took a knee years ago and has been almost forced out for about three and a half years. So he wants to come back in. And a former NFL executive says the Vikings should sign Kaepernick now. Let's continue on with the news. Okay. In the news, Canada's UN mission goes viral with a tweet mocking the Russian letter to the UN. So Canada intercepted a letter from the Russians. They were asking for something or stating an opinion, and Canada recorrected their grammar. For example, I am reaching out to you with regard to the urgent matter related to the dire humanitarian situation in and around the Ukraine, which we have caused as a result of our illegal war of aggression. Insert. Because we are the primary cause. And this is the deterioration of the Ukraine. So Canada rewrote the letter stated by Russia, and Canada put in comments stating exactly what is happening in the war. For example, and Russia also responded. So here, the only way to do this is a clear demand on behalf of the UN for Russia to end its illegal war of aggression and cease hostilities. Guided by this zero logic, the Russian Federation has proposed in the Security Council an absolutely craven and ferocious draft implicitly gives cover for our war of aggression and violations of international law. So they're saying that Russia is using a delay tactic. And looking fairly at the Russian comments, yes, but you are attacking civilians, bombing schools, hospitals, and looting aid, which makes us think you are not actually believe this. Please explain. Wow. So Canada really pressed Russia to explain what they're doing. And the letter reads, just continues. The bottom part here, Canada crossed out, and let's see if there's any other great parts here. Okay, let's see this one. Guided by zero logic, this move defies any logic or reason, and continues up here. Have absurd our veto and prevented, or we have abused our veto and prevented the Security Council from discharging its responsibility in responding to the very war of aggression that we launched and have continued in violation of international law. And then Russia originally wrote, Assembly cannot substitute the Security Council, has been required to play a role. So the wording here by Canada's representative is just coming back to Russia. And let's look at this last one here. Our draft demands all parties to respect their obligations under international humanitarian and human rights law, and also demands the civilians, including women and children, are fully protected. Canada comments, please see our comment above about Russia's forces that appear to be in direct contravention of international humanitarian law. And it says here, yes, but you are attacking civilians, bombing schools and hospitals, including the maternity ward, and looting aid. So aid has been sent into the Ukraine, and that's being attacked by the Russian forces. So this was dated March 17th. And this is Canada's UN mission. And they responded to the Russians asking for the UN to do something. This is just wonderful news where Canada responds to say, Russia, you are asking for help, but you are the ones causing the problem. And lastly, we're going to go to Arnold Schwartzenegger. He says, I love the Russian people. This is why I have to tell you the truth, and please watch.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm sending this message through various different channels to reach my dear Russian friends and the Russian soldiers serving in Ukraine. I'm speaking to you today because there are things that are going on in the world that are being kept from you, terrible things that you should know about. But before I talk about the harsh realities, let me just tell you about the Russian who became my hero. In 1961, when I was 14 years old, a very good friend of mine invited me to come to Vienna and to watch the World Weightlifting Championships. I was in the audience when Yuri Petrovich Vlasov won the World Championship title, becoming the first human being to lift 200 kilograms over his head. Somehow a friend of mine got me backstage. All of a sudden, there I was, a 14-year-old boy standing in front of the strongest man in the world. I couldn't believe it. He reached out to shake my hand. I mean, I still had a boy's hand. He had this powerful man's hand that swallowed mine, but he was kind, and he smiled at me. I would never forget that day, never. I went home and put his photo above my bed to inspire me when I started lifting weights. My father told me to take down that picture and to find a German or an Austrian hero. He got really angry and we argued back and forth. He didn't like Russians because of his experience in the Second World War. You see, he was injured at Leningrad, that the Nazi army that he was part of did vicious harm to the great city and to its brave people. But I did not take the photograph down, no, because it didn't matter to me what flag Yuri Vlasov carried. My connections to Russia didn't stop there, by the way. Oh, it actually deepened when I traveled there with bodybuilding and for my movies and met all my Russian fans. And on one of those trips, I remember, I met Yuri Vlasov once again. It was in Moscow during the filming of Red Heat, which was the first American movie allowed to film in Red Square. Now, he and I spent the whole day together. He was so thoughtful, so kind, and so smart, and of course, very giving. He gave me this beautiful blue coffee cup. And ever since then, I've been drinking my coffee out of every morning. Now, the reason why I'm telling you all of those things is that ever since I was 14 years old, I've had nothing but affections and respect for the people of Russia. The strength and the heart of the Russian people have always inspired me. That is why I hope that you will let me tell you the truth about the war in Ukraine and what is happening there. No one likes to hear something critical of the government. I understand that. But as a longtime friend of the Russian people, I hope that you will hear what I have to say. And may I remind you that I speak with the same heartfelt concern as I spoke to the American people when there was an attempted insurrection on January 6th last year, when a wild crowd was storming the US Capitol, trying to overthrow our government. You see, there are moments like this that are so wrong, and then we have to speak up. This is exactly the same with your government. I know that your government has told you that this is a war to denazify Ukraine. Denazify Ukraine. This is not true. Ukraine is a country with a Jewish president, I might add, whose father's 3 brothers were all murdered by the Nazis. You see, Ukraine did not start this war. Neither did nationalists or Nazis. Those in power in the Kremlin started this war. This is not the Russian people's war. No. As a matter of fact, let me tell you, what you should know is that 141 nations at the UN voted that Russia was the aggressor and called for it to remove its troops immediately. Only 4 countries in the entire world voted with Russia. That is a fact. See, the world has turned against Russia because of its actions in Ukraine. Whole city blocks have been flattened by Russian artillery and bombs, including a children's hospital and a maternity hospital. 3 million Ukrainian refugees, mainly women, children, and elderly, fled their country, and many more are trying to get out. It is a humanitarian crisis. Because of its brutality, Russia is now isolated from the society of nations. You're also not being told the truth about the consequences of this war on Russia itself. I regret to tell you that thousands of Russian soldiers that have been killed. They've been caught between Ukrainians fighting for their homeland and the Russian leadership fighting for conquest. Massive amounts of Russian equipment have been destroyed or abandoned. The destruction that Russian bombs are raining down upon innocent civilians has so outraged the world that the strongest global economic sanctions ever taken have been imposed on your country. Those who don't deserve it on both sides of the war will suffer. The Russian government has lied not only to the citizens, but to its soldiers. Some of the soldiers were told they were going to fight Nazis. Some were told that the Ukrainian people would greet them like heroes. And some were told that they were simply going on exercise. They didn't even know that they were going into war. And some were told that they were there to protect ethnic Russians in Ukraine. None of this is true. The fact is that Russian soldiers have faced fierce resistance from the Ukrainians who want to protect their families and their country. When I see babies being pulled out of ruins, I think that I'm watching a documentary about the horrors of the Second World War, not the news of the day. And let me tell you, when my father arrived in Leningrad, he was all pumped up on the lies of his government. And when he left Leningrad, he was broken, physically and mentally. He lived the rest of his life in pain, pain from a broken back, pain from the shrapnel that always reminded him of these terrible years, and pain from the guilt that he felt. To the Russian soldiers listening to this broadcast, you already know much of the truth that I've been speaking. You have seen it with your own eyes. I don't want you to be broken like my father. This is not the war to defend Russia that your grandfathers or your great-grandfathers fought. This is an illegal war. Your lives, your limbs, your futures are being sacrificed for a senseless war condemned by the entire world. Now, to those in power in the Kremlin, let me just ask you, why would you sacrifice this young man for your own ambitions? To the soldiers who are listening to this, remember that 11 million Russians have family connections to Ukraine. So every bullet you shoot a brother or a sister. Every bomb or every shell that falls is falling not on an enemy, but on a school or a hospital or a home. I know that the Russian people are not aware of such things are happening. So I urge the Russian people and the Russian soldiers in Ukraine to understand the propaganda and the disinformation that you're being told. I ask you to help me spread the truth. Let your fellow Russians know the human catastrophe that is happening in Ukraine. And to President Putin, I say, you started this war. You're leading this war. You can stop this war. Now, let me close with a message to all of the Russians who have been protesting on the streets against the invasion of Ukraine. The world has seen your bravery. We know that you have suffered the consequences of your courage. You have been arrested, you have been jailed, and you've been beaten. You are my new heroes. You have the strength of Yuri Petrovich Vlasov. You have the true heart of Russia. My dear Russian friends, may God bless you all.
This is some of the news that's coming out of the Ukraine from Arnold Schwartzenegger, and we can look at quickly the latest news. So 3 journalists have been filmed the agony of Mariupol and escaped while being hunted down by Russian forces. Let's have a look at this.
место только в подвалах. В подвале люди сидят. В подвал к людям носить мертвых как-то это... Поэтому это как...
Украина понад усе шакали.
Отлично.
Значит, в подвале мы 11 дней находимся, 11 день в подвале, а война у нас идет 25-й день сегодня. Мы каждый день считаем и надеемся на лучшее, на человеческое существование. Квартира разбита, все разбито. Вот с подвала куда нам выйти? На костре готовим. Пока у нас есть какие-то дрова, пока есть какая-то еда. Через неделю у нас не будет уже ничего, никакой еды. Что нам делать?
Все готовят.
This is in Mariupol. That was coming from the CBC. This is Ron. Please have a great day.